So we'll very quickly add a bad guy into our game at this point, and I've attached a badguy.js script to this presentation, and you can just right-click on it and save link as, or whatever your browser is calling that. And I've saved it to my desktop. I've then dragged that into my scripts folder, into my project, so I have my bad guy script here inside my game already. And this bad guy script, basically, it's a very simple script. All it does is takes an object and looks for another object. In this case, it'll be the player. So the bad guy's looking for something to chase, and if we get close enough to it, it's going to apply force in the direction of the target object. So basically, as we run away from it, it'll run around and chase us. So I'm going to create a bad guy, and I'll do that by simply creating a sphere. I'll make the sphere a little bit bigger, and I'll add a physics rigid body to it. So this will be affected by gravity the same way that we are, and I'll just kind of place that somewhere where I know that it's at, and it'll start off roughly on the grass. So right now, if I hit the play button, I just have this big sphere that doesn't do anything. It just kind of drops down the grass, and I can run over to it, and I can bump it around, and I can I can kind of bully this object and be mean to it and try to push it off my platform. Okay, but the moment that I take this bad guy script, and before I do this, I'll even name my new sphere. I'll name him bad guy. I can take my bad guy script, drag and drop it onto my bad guy, and once I do that, I'll look over here, and you'll see that there's an aware and a scared distance. The scared distance actually isn't being used yet, but there's an aware distance, so 15 meters. When I get within 15 meters of this bad guy, he knows I'm there, and he's going to run at me. The player, this is the thing that the object needs to be aware of, or the bad guy needs to be aware of, and so the only thing I need to do is make sure that my marble is loaded in as the player that is being chased by this bad guy. Now the run speed I'll ignore. It's the force value that I want to be concerned about here. So when I hit the play button, I'll just run over here, and you can see that marble starts to, or the bad guy starts to actually try to point at me. And if I just stay still right now, he'll eventually kind of bump into me. So it's not super smart, but he's trying to figure out how to get at me right now. So I'll change some of these values here. If I give him an opportunity to kind of catch me, he'll just spin around and start pushing me. Now, what I'm going to do with my bad guy selected is I'm going to focus on the rigid body for just a moment, and I'm going to bump up his mass. I'm going to make it twice the mass of my marble. By default, my marble was set to a mass of 1, and what that's going to do is it's going to make him move a lot slower. It's also going to make him harder to push and bump around. Okay, so he'll hit me with a little bit more force because he's more massive than I am at this point. I'm going to bump up the force a little bit. Maybe I'll make it 40 and see how that affects see how it affects this. So when I get close, he's going to come at me a lot faster. Okay, now the only flaw with this now is as I try to run away and this thing chases me, and it's going to kind of bump around, and in fact, if I just stay still, it'll start to push me. Now, you can start to see the problem is that right now it's kind of caught in this infinite spin. And also, if I fake this thing out, if I get far enough away from it, it's just going to keep heading on its current path until it falls off my scene. Okay, so it's just going to keep going until it completely falls off the edge of the world. There it goes. Okay, and what I can do, and the reason for that is because it's receiving a force just like we are, but we're doing it through a key input, and all we have to do is, with the bad guy selected, what I want to do, a simple fix, is to increase the drag. And the drag is how much resistance this marble is facing in this world. I'll just bump that up to 1, and I'm just experimenting, and instead of 0.05 for the angular drag, I'll set it to 0.5, and now when I hit the play button, the result is it will come to a stop much earlier. Okay, so if I fake it out, okay, well, I even faked myself out there. I'm off the platform. That object eventually comes to a standstill much quicker. And so, in other words, it's meeting resistance, and it doesn't have the ability, even though force is no longer being applied to it. In the previous example, it just kind of kept moving until it moved off of the world. The minute that we add some drag to the object, it'll come to rest much quicker. So I can play with the mass, the drag, and the angular drag of this object, really get to kind of tweak it the way that I want it. And as I increase these things, I need to start bumping up the force, because as there's more drag in this object, it needs more force to get it to move. So I need to play back and forth between mass, drag, angular drag, and the actual force that's being applied to it. So right now I got this bad guy. He's trying to protect his coins, and I'm just trying to get away. And so the gameplay value here is that obviously if I were trying not to fall off into the grass or get pushed off the platform while trying to collect the coins, and I have this really annoying thing chasing me around, I basically need to, you know, get away from it, fake it out, maybe trap it somehow, or even push it off the platform and hope that it stops chasing me. So once I get far enough away from it, or 15 meters away from it, it stops chasing me. And so I could make that object much more difficult to get away from, again, by increasing that force. But I need to balance it with mass and drag. So I can combine that with some of the other things that we looked at, some of the other scripts, like the teleport script and you know, some of the power-up scripts, to really start to you know, really introduce some gameplay mechanics here. So that's the bad guy. That's just a quick overview of it. Play with these scripts. There's no requirement to use every single one of these scripts. I just want to introduce you to some of these concepts, so if you want to experiment with them inside your game, you have access to that. So that's it for the bad guys. We'll catch up in the next presentation, and I'll deal with some specific issues that folks are having with this project. We'll do that in the next presentation.